I'll give a big hand for Latesha Byrd.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I know y'all are not quiet. I am so honored to be here again. Who was here yesterday in my session? All right, good, because I have a couple of pop quizzes, so I'm going to test you to make sure you were listening yesterday. But I'm really excited and honored to be talking about something that I think is very, very important and instrumental to an organization's success, which is mentorship and sponsorship programs. How to make them inclusive, what you should be considering, how you can structure them and set them up so that anyone that is a part of this program can really be set up for success. Since everyone was here yesterday for the most part, I pretty much will just skip my bio and my life story. But what I will share with you that I did not share yesterday is that my organization, Perfecta, has supported many organizations in creating mentorship, sponsorship programs. We have created the structure behind the programs, from how to market it, how to structure it, how to select mentors and mentees, all the way to the curriculum development of the actual program itself. So have a lot of experience in creating these programs, guiding leaders, and making sure that these programs are set up well. And if you all have any questions throughout, of course, please feel free to ask. There's no question that is off limits. As a reminder, I did say this yesterday and I'm going to say it again. I really want to feed off of you all's energy, so I'm going to be asking you all questions. Feel free to smile, laugh at all of my corny jokes, like show me some love. And if I do see that your eyes are glazed over or if you're falling asleep, I'm just going to skip along to the next one if it's not really resonating. I do have a couple of questions here for you all. Has your life been impacted by a mentor or sponsor? Just show of hands if you have had a mentor or a sponsor in your career. Amazing, amazing. I will say for me personally, I have been very grateful to have some phenomenal mentors and sponsors, and if it was not for them, I would not be where I am today in my business. I would not have been where I was when I was in corporate America, where I was able to grow extremely fast. And you know, the thing is, as women, we are often under supported and under mentored. This is why I love when organizations have structured mentorship programs, right? The other question that I have here for you all is, does your organization have a mentorship or sponsorship program? Show of hands. Okay, we got one hand, two. One, two. All right. Do you want your organization to have a mentorship or sponsorship program? Okay, great. So with that being said, I hope that you will take ample notes today, take this back to your workplaces, have conversations with your leadership team, because really by the time you leave my session, you're gonna know how to actually launch a formal mentorship program, right? So I'm going to share a few stats and some studies. HBR, or Harvard Business Review, found that mentorship programs make companies' managerial echelons significantly more diverse. On average, they boost the representation of African American, Hispanic, Asian American women, and Hispanic and Asian American men anywhere from 9% to 24%. The improvement in numbers stems from the nature of mentoring in an informal setting versus a formal program. The next one that I really just want us to talk about for a minute: white men tend to find mentors on their own, while women and other minorities more often need the extra assistance or guidance a formal program can provide. Now, check this out. It's not that executives don't want to mentor women or minorities, but rather they don't feel comfortable reaching out informally to mentor young women and minority men. What do y'all think about that?
They're insecure.
Ooh, they're insecure.
Maybe the biases or differences, like maybe that makes them feel more conscious and like apprehensive about doing it.
Yes, there's biases that exist. They feel more apprehensive or conscious about doing it. Yep. What were you gonna say? Yeah.
I guess that would probably stem from the fact that we don't have a lot of diversity in leadership roles.
Yes.
Comfortable
Right.
mentoring others.
We don't have a lot of diversity in leadership roles, which is why having a structured program is so important. Yesterday, I told you all that if you do you don't have to do this, I'm just gonna do it for you. But if you do your arms like this, right, this is demonstrating a pyramid, right? We are represented here at the bottom, even the mid levels of organization. As you kind of matriculate up, women and women get less and less, right? So you have all of these men that are at the top of these organizations, right? And so there is so much bias that exists. There's also the patriarchy and sexism, and I'm not gonna go into all of that today. But because of that, the biases show men that men are the ones that should be in leadership roles, that are capable of leadership roles, right? And so they are more inclined to mentor people who look like them, who talk like them, who sound like them, and that is really because there are a lot of biases and stereotypes that exist and assumptions that are made that maybe we as women don't want to go up in our careers in these organizations, right? So the last point here, while formal diversity mentorship, with formal diversity mentorship programs, the connection is facilitated through a more structured system, alleviating apprehension or uncertainty around asking for mentorship. This is why these programs are so incredibly important. All right, does anyone remember this from yesterday? So this is the first pop quiz. Now, I walked you all through my organization's DEI framework, right? The 6-point success criteria. The question that I have for you all is, based on these 6 areas, where do you believe a mentorship or a sponsorship program falls? Yeah, got a hand?
I would think the talent programs as well as the employee experience slash culture.
See, you got it on the first try. That's great. So it intersects between talent programs and employee experience and culture. Good for you. How did you know? I guess I did a good job explaining it yesterday. Okay. So yes, they fall within those two. Essentially, they intersect right there. Can someone answer why talent programs? Why talent programs? Okay.
So say you see there's like certain employees that have a certain skill set or there's potential, then you would want to nurture it through a mentorship program.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then employee experience and culture. You get a prize after this too.
Well, you want to have a positive company culture.
Yes.
Where people feel like they can grow.
Yes.
See themselves like in their future as well. So you want to have those opportunities.
Yes, exactly. So talent programs. Yesterday, when I walked you all through the framework, I told you with talent programs, this is the entire employee life cycle, right? And so when you think about the way that talent really evolves through an organization, it does not just start and end at talent attraction and recruitment. It goes all the way to the onboarding, to the way that we are developed, to the way that we are promoted and invested in, all the way until we exit an organization. And so a mentorship program is a very clear component of developing talent. As it relates to the employee experience part, yes, a mentorship program does increase someone's confidence levels in the organization, employee morale, right? And it also creates a sense of community and belonging. When they feel like their organization is investing in their growth, they're more likely to stay. And I do have a couple of more stats to share on that. So, programs can increase confidence and satisfaction. from underrepresented groups, and studies have found that 74% of people from historically excluded groups do participate in mentorship programs when they are offered, but we need to start offering them. And let me just say this too. I know you all, can go back to your organization and let them know that I've shared this information with you. But I do want to encourage you all, from no matter what level or function that you sit in, take the opportunity to mentor someone within your team or someone in your organization, right? Because it doesn't have to be formal. Of course, what I'm talking about is a more formal, structured program, but even informal mentorship goes a very long way. So find a woman at your organization you can mentor. Most professionals, 56%, are motivated to engage with primary mentoring relationships because they aspire to reach a similar point in their career. Some folks just need a sounding board, and they also want to, be mentored by someone with a similar background. But I will say, do not let that hold you back from having a mentor or sponsor if they don't come from the same community or background as you. I have actually been sponsored and mentored by white men, and they have been very integral to my career success. Mentees are promoted 5 times more often than those not in a mentoring program. Why do y'all think that is? Why do y'all think that is? Something I said yesterday is that just because someone is in a management role does not mean that they're a leader. And sometimes managers actually lack the leadership capacity and competency to be able to develop those that report to them. So we can often get developed from mentors at an organization, right? They can be that sounding board, they can give you that career guidance. They can let you know what they would do from their experience, and sometimes we don't always get that from our managers. Compared to those who don't participate in mentorship programs, retention rates are significantly higher. Mentees by 22% and mentors by 20%, right? So this is really just kind of breaking down the business case. Mentorship programs leads to talent retention. Talent retention saves organizations tons and tons of money. What's the difference between mentorship and sponsorship? What do you all think is the difference between those two?
Mentorship is just supporting someone on a professional journey. It's a one-on-one engagement, an environment of trust where you help each other, help the mentee. But sponsorship is more about actively advocating and creating opportunities for someone to grow and advance.
That was spot on. So, mentors provide guidance. Mentorship is a relationship with someone who is a bit more experienced. They can, be that sounding board to someone who has a little bit less experience. Now, a sponsor opens doors. A sponsor should be speaking your name in rooms that you're not in. Like you said, sponsor is going to advocate for their sponsee. This is usually someone who has authority and influence at an organization. If they say, hey, you should watch out for Latesha. She is a rising star at this company, right? It takes one person with a lot of influence, social and political capital to say your name, and guess what? That is going to go a lot further than you saying it, right? I'll be honest, that is how it works. So a mentor talks to you, and a sponsor talks about you, right? And with that being said, I do find that it is very important in a relationship where we do have a sponsor is to make sure that you share your career goals, make sure you share some of those challenges that you may be having, right? Not in a messy way, like, oh, let me complain to you about my manager, right? But make sure that you are sharing with them, hey, I need a bit more visibility at my organization, right? Can you help me with that, or what are some ways that I can gain visibility? That is how a sponsor can really support you. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about creating a mentorship program and what that can consist of from a program design perspective. The first thing is that we need to make sure that there are very clear goals and objectives of a mentorship program. Is it to develop underrepresented talent? Is it to increase our leadership pipeline, right? How does the program align with the overall organization's DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion goals? Target audience, this should be defined as well. And how will we ensure that there is representation from various groups? Structure, what will be the duration? Is it going to be an annual program? How frequently should mentors and mentees meet? And what I have found in my work of doing this is that sometimes these programs fail because they haven't really thought through some of these specifics. Mentors and mentees should be held accountable to make sure that they are meeting. So designate that structure. Now let's talk a little bit about recruitment and matching. What criteria will be used to select mentors? As we've already discussed earlier in Aaron's session, there's a lot of bias that goes into recruitment, not even just for recruiting individuals to an organization, but even in this process, I've seen a whole lot of bias going into how mentees are being selected. And so I do see a best practice where organizations have a structured recruitment process, not just, hey, we're gonna just say, oh, this person is great, let's throw them in the mentor program, but making sure that there is some type of nomination, application, interview process, right? That we are also looking at if this person is in good performance standing with the company. There's just different things to think about with making sure you have the best individuals in the program. Even from a mentor perspective, have you all ever noticed that there are leaders who are charismatic and they're just great at communication, but they absolutely suck at follow-up? They do not have the time, the bandwidth, or the capacity to mentor someone else. That's just what it is. And so it is important to make sure that these folks are being vetted properly, have the time and the skills to actually be an effective mentor. Also, having a strong matching process is important as well. So here we go. Training and resources. Sometimes we throw mentors and mentees in a program and say, okay, great. Have a great program, you got it, right? At my company, Perfecta, we actually do facilitate onboarding sessions. What does it actually mean to be a mentor? What does it mean to be a mentee? We do facilitate ongoing training to make sure that people know how they should be showing up in this relationship. And what are some things to do versus what are some things not to do? And I have seen it all, right? In some of the mentorship programs that we've launched, I've seen where mentees have asked mentors for money. They have gossiped about people on their team. Like, just talk to your friends, okay? Like, don't bring drama into it. So training. Again, we just should not assume that folks know how to show up in these relationships. Resources, what resources will be available just to make sure that they're having effective conversations, right? Again, at Perfecta, we do put together, templates and documents that they can fill out. We do ask the mentee to report back on what they're actually discussing. In these conversations, we do provide them with questions. We do provide at the beginning a career kind of goals roadmap document where they can answer that, and that gives them something to go back to their mentor and talk with them about. Monitoring, it is important to make sure that there are ways to continue to regularly gather feedback, whether that's in a survey, a check-in, and again, asking them to provide, like a quarterly report. Again, it depends on the duration of the program, right? There's also a lot of softwares out there that I didn't include it in this deck, but there's a lot of different programs, and if anyone's interested in that, please feel free to reach out to me because this is a lot of work. This is a whole lot of work. And so if you do have the funding and resources to invest in a tech program, that will make sure that a lot of the legwork will be taken out. All right, communication. How will you communicate the goals and benefits of the program? Having a marketing campaign, right? That does go a long way. How will you foster a culture that supports the mentorship program? awareness and education. How will you raise awareness? What educational materials will be available to all employees as well? This also should be integrated with other DEI initiatives. And then partnerships. Are there opportunities to collaborate with external organizations? And how can these partnerships contribute to the achievement of the program's objectives? Again, there's a lot of different ways organizations can structure it, where you have an external facilitator, like my organization, that can come in and provide some of these, regular workshops, provide coaching as well. We've also seen where organizations have had different leaders from different functions or departments within an organization kind of host some round tables, some panel discussions, so that, these mentees can learn from leaders at the organization on, how they got to where they are, how to navigate the organization. And again, it all goes back to the goals, the outcomes of the program. Something that is not in here that I do want to say is that another best practice is to track the retention rate and the promotion rate of the individuals that are a part of these programs, right? I was just talking with one of our clients who's a banking client, their head of values and engagement, because she just ran their pilot year for their mentorship program. And we had a talk last Monday, and I said, well, how are you tracking the matriculation of these program participants? And she's like, I watched them on LinkedIn and just kind of check in and see what they're doing. And I wanted to tell her, like, girl, you gotta put this in a spreadsheet or something, like have a system to keep up with this information. Because when you are working in HR, talent, diversity, equity, and inclusion, we gotta have that data. We gotta have that data, because you never want to be 2-3 years in the program and then C-suite's like, yeah, we're gonna scrap that, it's not working. Track the data over time. And with the surveys, collecting feedback from participants along the way, you can get those testimonials, right? You can get those stories where they can personally share how the program and being invested in supported their career. So a lot of good ways to do that. Okay, I'm over here clicking the clicker to do the now. So components of a successful program: clear objectives and goals, as I mentioned, having a structured matching process. Having a structured process takes out all of that bias, takes out all of that inequity, right? Even having what do you call it? Like a measurement of success, right? Like a spreadsheet of how you are maybe coming up with like 4 or 5 competencies to assess if someone is the right participant or mentee for the program, right? And making sure you're keeping track of that for everyone that applies. Participant support and resources, training and development, and then feedback and monitoring. So now I'm going to talk through some of those common barriers. Finding quality mentors. And there's about 10 barriers. So I'm going to go through them quickly because I know I'm the last person before lunch. So finding quality mentors. Again, just because someone is a very well-known leader at an organization, they may not be equipped to be a mentor. And so we do recommend as a best practice to offer training, accountability as well to these leaders to make sure that they are being developed in their mentorship skills. The next one here is engagement and participation. Something that a lot of our clients say is that, about 3 or 6 months in, they lose momentum because, people get busy with their day jobs and they're like, I'll talk to my mentor, I'll talk to my mentee later. And so it is important to, one, just have really good programming as well, and establish a feedback loop to make sure that you're getting that feedback from participants so that you can adjust how the program is being structured. Matching mentors and mentees. Sometimes people just don't mesh well, right? Sometimes they just aren't compatible, the chemistry isn't there, and so we do recommend that there is a process in place in case the relationship just isn't really melding. Unconscious bias. So talked a little bit about this yesterday. We definitely recommend that there are tools, resources, even inclusive language guides that are being provided to everyone within the program so that they are not having very uncomfortable conversations or navigating microaggressions in this program. Balancing formality and flexibility, do recommend having clear guidelines while leaving room for personalized approaches. So you do want it to be formal, of course. You do want it to be taken seriously at the organization, but especially if you're in your first year, you may have to adjust as needed. Right? I've talked a little bit already about monitoring and evaluation, so just make sure that, we do have ways of tracking and measuring our success and that we are reporting that back to leadership. Time constraints. We're busy, we have day jobs, this is something we're doing off the side of our desk, and so having flexible scheduling is very important. Also recommend, and this is for anyone participating in anything DEI or EDI related, whether it's a mentorship program, whether it's recruiting, whether it is an employee resource group or network, it's make sure that the managers, the direct managers of the individuals that are in this program, their managers are aware that they're in the program and that they understand the importance of it and that they support their direct reports being a part of it. Because when a manager isn't supportive or if they're like, what are you doing with that person? It can make that person a bit uncomfortable to be able to dedicate time, during the day. And so saying all that to say, facilitating virtual meetings and being flexible with the timing of that is very important. Confidentiality and trust, something that I often say is that I can't dictate anyone's level of emotional safety or anyone's level of belonging, even here in this room, right? You all indicate that, know that for yourselves, but there are certainly things that we can do as individuals to hope that we are developing a safe space. And so we do recommend that there are clear policies regarding confidentiality to build trust. All right. So I'm gonna skip ahead here. Key steps, and this is, step by step of how to go from not having a mentorship program to actually having one. So choose a goal for the program and communicate that. Again, you do want to tie that back to the business outcome. Again, this is about the business case of it. So talent retention, making sure that you are, again, building that leadership pipeline, making sure that people are more equipped to, drive customer revenue, right? Again, it's what's gonna make sure that you're getting a solid budget for this program. You have to speak to the organizational objectives. Setting criteria for participants, setting those guidelines, how often should they meet, when should they meet, what should be discussed during those meetings. If you leave it up to them, I don't even know what they would even talk about. But you don't want to get to the end of the program and then everyone has wasted their time and your money. Training mentors and mentees, pairing up employees intentionally, setting up an onboarding process and a welcome event. And again, we've done onboarding events where we have trained participants on how to be an effective mentor and mentee. We've also paired that with a social event. So one of our clients, they actually had a virtual mixology class. So the first part of it was, all right, we at Perfect are going to talk about how to be a great mentor and mentee. And then the second half of that was like, great, let's make cocktails. So you can definitely have a little bit of fun with that. Providing discussion topics and resources, building regular programming, even outside of just the mentors and mentees, meeting with one another, but actually build out some programming so that you can ensure they are really getting to know each other and building that trust, right? And then setting up reporting or check-ins to gauge the effectiveness of mentoring relationships. Again, you don't want to get to the end of the year and you're talking to the mentors or the mentees and they're like, yeah, I didn't really talk to them. It didn't really work out. You don't want that to happen. So have those regular check-ins throughout the year. All right. Evaluation and feedback, reporting for your program. These are some things that organizations can report on. The first one here is signups. How many people are interested in being a part of the program? Is anyone familiar with the term FOMO? Right? You want to get to a point where there is a wait list for your program where folks are like, what is this Grow with Women's Leaders mentorship program? Oh, did I miss the cutoff? Okay, I'm going to sign up next year, right? You want to make sure you have a wait list, right? You don't want to accept any and everybody. I mean, you got to develop some type of FOMO. Do recommend, too, that organizations start small. So my baking client that I mentioned, they started off with 20. Actually, I think she said maybe 25. They're going to scale that down a little bit because she realized that that was probably too many for the first program. Mentor and mentee goals. Again, make sure that they do set goals at the beginning of the relationship and share those goals with you. So by the end of the program, you can go back to that and say, hey, where are you all tracking on those goals? Anecdotal feedback. So checking in with participants to see how they're feeling. We definitely, when it comes to data collection at Perfecta, believe in quantitative data because you do want to be able to slice and dice the numbers, but qualitative data, again, getting those stories, that's going to be very important as well too, because as you start to promote even the next year of the program, you can start to include some of those testimonials that people shared with you from the first year. Session feedback, give feedback real time. This is something that folks always tell us again, and not even just, program, mentorship programs, but even like those employee resource group leaders are like, we never get enough feedback from our members. If you are on a Zoom, go ahead and ask them on a Zoom, launch that Zoom poll right here and there, right? Don't wait until after the event to send that survey out. And then business outcomes. So what are we actually tracking, right? Retention, promotion, I think those are the top ones to report. Right, I'm going to skip ahead because I already talked about the benefits of collecting feedback. Key takeaways. It is okay to start with a pilot program and then scale, right? Depending on the size of your organization, you can start with 10, you can start with 15. Please don't start your first year with 100 people. It is a lot of work and I've seen it. It's hard. A mentorship program is very hard to execute. It is just very time extensive and a lot of times we underestimate that. Tracking data is key. Again, survey, one-on-ones, check-ins, Zoom polls, Google Meet polls, whatever you gotta do, make sure you're tracking that data. And then meet your mentees where they are. Everyone is going to be a part of these programs for different reasons, and that is okay. But don't assume that everyone wants to grow to C-suite and would be the next CEO. Some folks might want to be there to, have community. They want a sounding board. That will in turn really help them perform better at the organization. But just meet them where they are and make sure your mentors know that too, so they can be very patient with those that are part of the program. All right, I've left enough time for questions today, which I was running over yesterday. Please connect with me on social. I am very active on Instagram, Twitter. I'm probably going to delete my Twitter, but still connect with me in the meantime for personal reasons. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I also put out a lot of content, not just about talent, company culture, DE&I, but also very passionate about wellness. And I created a career wellness toolkit for high achieving women. That's an area that I'm passionate about because we work very hard and we are not appreciated enough and we don't take care of ourselves enough. So I can talk about self-care and wellness all day long, and so I hope that you check out that toolkit and give me your feedback on it. So with that being said, thank you, and we'll love to take any questions if you all have them.
All right, are there any questions for Latesha? Kindly raise your hands. All right, we have one question right here. Okay, I'm a little bit slow, I'm sorry. All right, we're good. Hi, Letitia. Thank you for that. You're referencing a lot of larger organizations. I'm just wondering about your experience in terms of mentorship in startups or small business and what that looks like.
Yes, so that's a great question. We work with well, more mid-sized organizations. We do work with a lot of startups and nonprofits as well. And so I'll go back to an organization called Structured Finance Association. They are a nonprofit with like maybe less than five full-time folks on their team. And so we were their talent company culture DEI partner for about a year and a half, and we helped them launch a mentorship program. But they are an association, right? And so their members are a part of like the finance world, insurance world. And so the mission of the organization was to support those in that industry. And so we started off their mentorship program with about 20 folks in totality. So about 10 mentors and 10 mentees. So the onboarding event or that welcome event that I referenced, it was actually for them. Yeah, I mean, it pretty much applies the same, but I think the biggest difference is that depending on the size of the organization, the smaller you want that pool to be. And also recognizing that the touch points might be a bit less frequent than a larger organization. And so with that program, they were only meeting quarterly. And then a lot of the engagement was done virtually. They used a program called Mentor City. So that is a tech platform for mentorship programs. And so even if they weren't meeting, weekly, monthly, or whatever, they were still required to at least engage on a bi-weekly basis with those virtual discussion chats. And we were responsible for putting those questions in. Sometimes it would be more work business, sometimes it would be more fun just to make sure that there was that communication that was still happening. So.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? One last question. Okay, we have another question.
Thank you, Latesha, for the insightful presentation. Okay, my name is Grace, and I want to know, as an active job seeker, how do I leverage a mentorship and or sponsorship program to, landing a job here in this environment?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of my mentors, well, it came from two ways. One is me just shooting my shot in the DMs. So the LinkedIn DMs. When I was 20, I don't know, somewhere in my early 20s, I had met someone who was friends with like my boss's boss's boss. Now, I've always been very ambitious and I've had a lot of audacity since I was a child. And so he was head of diversity at Nike at the time. And I messaged him on LinkedIn. I told him a little bit about my background, and I just said, hey, I'm up and coming talent professional, like really would love to learn more about your career journey. If you're open to, even just connecting over coffee, phone call, would love to, hear and learn a little bit more, and also share with you some of my goals and get your insight. And I remember the first time that we met up, you know what he told me? He said, just because you're a Black woman doesn't mean that you should be working in DEI or that you're equipped to work in DEI. And I was like I couldn't believe that he said that, right? He had a point. Because there's education, there's certifications, there's experience that someone, needs to really excel in this field. Again, this was I don't remember the years, maybe like 7, 8 years ago at this point. Remember the banking client that I mentioned to you all throughout this session? He is a CHRO of that company. So we've had a relationship now for many years, and he has brought me in to help develop their employee resource groups and to support their mentorship program. And it all started with me sliding in his DMs. And I joke with him about that all the time now. And he's like, yeah, now the teacher is a student. So saying all that to say, don't be afraid to shoot your shot, right? In the LinkedIn DMs, But also, there are ways that I think we should show up in these relationships, right? I'll tell you another story. Another person who I met through an association that I was a part of, he was leading talent acquisition at a company. And I reached out to him again, shot my shot. We established a great relationship. We went to lunch. He would tell me about books that I should buy. And any book that he told me, I would order the book, I would buy the book, and the next time we met, I would tell him what I learned from that book. So I was already making a difference making a difference from others based on that relationship, right? He helped me with my job search, reviewed my resume, gave me feedback, all of this stuff, right? About 6 months into the journey, I got to a point where I realized I want to work for him. Like, why am I doing all of this? Like, he should be my boss, right? We go to lunch. I printed out my resume. I printed out my cover letter. And I pretty much pitched him on the fact that I wanted to work at his company. And he was like, I don't know why you're doing this. Like, we don't have anything. And I was like, that's fine, just in case. The next day, he calls me and he says, hey, remember that resume that you sent me? Or that you had at lunch? Can you send me a digital version of that? Take your business off the resume though. But send me your resume because the job that you told me you wanted, that person just put in their notice. And so I went through the process, got the job, of course, and we are still really good friends to this day. Again, these are two people that I shot my shot at. The second example that I will share is join organizations, like this one for sure, Grow Women's Leaders. You will find people with similar interests, similar industries that you can build those relationships with. So if you are a part of organizations, make sure that you're networking, make sure that you're connecting with people. And those two folks that I shot my shot with actually heard about them through an organization that I was a part of. So, yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I guess that's it for today. Once again, let's give a big hand for our speaker, Latesha. Thank you so much, Latesha.